is a PG podcast, but then Devin just kept on dropping shits and fucks, and
I'm just trying to figure out what's in her mouth.
I just want to see him interview Francesco Aquilini.
He's a good human being, is what he would say about himself, I'm sure.
Who's hosting this thing?
Take charge, Kevin, would you? Jesus.
First time we ever met those guys. That was the major drunken pub argument.
I think you guys are the worst.
I'm gonna have to probably watch some Canucks hockey, unfortunately.
Just making friends left, right, and center, and probably some enemies as well.
Tell him to shut up. He needs to hear that every once in a while.
Off to a good start.
All right. We are live.
It's okay to talk when it goes live.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hockey Podcast. We are live on Facebook.com, The Hockey Podcast, YouTube.com, The Hockey Podcast, where we currently sit at 132-year-old Jordan Nolan, who is a Ojibwe native, played in the NHL with the Los Angeles Kings and as well. And you can also find our audio and subscribe to our audio wherever you get your podcasts. We are, how do I word this? Well, maybe we'll start by saying, I'll just start by being a bit more polite to everyone here. Hello to Sean, Devin, and Joel. Hello to all of you.
Hello.
How are things?
Hot. It's we're just before 10:15, and we're already 27 degrees Celsius here in Calgary. We're not used to that, and it's going to get hotter. So we're hoping to stay cool.
Yeah, looking forward to some rain this coming few days, and it's definitely welcomed.
Yeah, we're currently a little bit overcast here in Langley in the Lower Mainland of Vancouver here this morning, and it's not so bad. I'm not going to lie; it's a nice change, but yeah, I'm just kind of shocked when I woke up this morning and I heard the news that the town of Lytton is virtually on fire and burned to the ground. I worked in Lytton many times when I was working for TELUS, based out of Kamloops there, and it's crazy. They broke Canadian heat records 3 days in a row, and it's just, it was dry as a tinderbox, and it's really unfortunate. So
Yeah. Thinking of them this morning as well, I think this is the day that we're treading a little lightly. I'm wearing an orange-ish shirt, just recognizing that this, it's not a usual celebratory type of day, and that's why I kind of wanted to pay a little tribute to some of the native hockey players like Rene Bourque, Michael Ferland, who's a Cree, Rene Bourque Métis, Vern Fiddler, Dwight King, who, by the way, I worked with his cousin at TJ Oshie, of course, Carey Price, Jordan Tutu, just to name a few. Reggie Leach, who has the goals record of 10 straight games with a goal in the Stanley Cup as well. So there's a few out there as well. So we're treading lightly and thinking and reflecting, as I hope you are as well. But we're also here to speak about hockey. And the Montreal Canadiens are down 2-0 to the Tampa Bay Lightning. Or I could switch that around and say the Tampa Bay Lightning are up 2-0 to the Montreal Canadiens. After a game that, hard not to be impressed with the effort that the Montreal Canadiens put forth, but definitely, unfortunately, the Tampa Bay Lightning found a way to win. Probably we'll get to the goal. I think there's some things around that goal that I think are leading to some very interesting questions and kind of maybe we'll start with Joel Saad. Kind of your thoughts on the series, and kind of, I don't think we got your predictions, Joel, but are you surprised Tampa's up 2-0?
I am. I'm not going to lie. I mean, at the beginning of the series, I picked Habs in 7, right? And I said that Carey Price would have to steal them at least 2 games for them to be able to get to that point and probably win the cup. Last night, I felt like the Habs last night played a really good game. They played a solid game. I think they limited Tampa Bay's scoring chances. Like, they were all over them the first 2 periods. I think they were a much better team. And I think the big difference is Montreal's penalty kill looked a lot better last game. In game 1, it just looked like Tampa was kind of running a little bit of roughshod over them. And it just looked like Montreal's penalty killers pressured a lot more, and they had a lot more jump in their step. Now, I think through 3 periods, the Habs outshot Tampa by 20 shots, and through 2 periods, it was even more than that. I think that they just couldn't find a way to find the back of the net. Like, they couldn't figure out how to pot one against Andrei Vasilevskiy. And all credit to them, tip of the cap. Vasilevskiy played a really good game. I think he was really strong. But what I think was the difference maker in this game is I don't think that Carey Price had a good game. And I think that he would be the first to kind of tell you that, like, hey, boys, I'm sorry I didn't have my best stuff. I felt like the first couple of goals that he let in there, especially the one right at the buzzer at the end of the second period, were a little bit soft. And especially with the second one, it's, when you're looking to go into the third period even, and you get a backbreaker like that with 0.3 seconds on the clock, that is deflating. Knowing you're going into the dressing room, coming out, and you're going to have to score 2 against a guy that's, been playing pretty well. I think Price needs to, obviously in game 3 in Montreal, I'd bet the house on Carey Price having a great game. Like, he's one of those guys that bounces back really well, that challenges himself. I don't expect to see that kind of performance out of Carey in games 3 or 4. But last night, ultimately, those couple goals and ones that sneak past him, that's was enough to get it done. And Tampa just they kind of lucked out, even though they were outplayed by the Habs.
I'm gonna give Carey Price some props here. Joel, I don't quite agree with that those goals were soft. I do agree that he didn't come out at his best, but the first one was a seeing eye shot. Not much you can really do about that. They had a bunch of people in front of the net, and the buzzer beater. Yeah, that's a hard one, but very uncharacteristic of Phil Deneau not being able to get that puck deep and turn that puck over at the red line. And he tried his best to get back to make sure he could cover Blake Coleman, and Blake Coleman doing Blake Coleman things. There's if you haven't seen it, there's a montage that the NHL's put out of goals very similar to that, or not very abnormal goals that Blake Coleman has had in the past through his NHL career. So it's not uncharacteristic of him to do something like that. But it's a hard position to be put in, not knowing exactly how much time you have left on the clock. And I thought he played okay, but obviously not good enough to win. At the very beginning of the series, we've talked about who would you rather have? Would you rather have Carey Price or Vasilevskiy? And right now, Vasilevskiy, last game, you'd want Vasilevskiy over Price. And yeah, he's Vasilevskiy. He's been unreal throughout these 2 games and throughout the entire playoffs, actually. And maybe he has a bit of a fire under his ass because he didn't win the Vezina, and he wanted to prove to everybody, or still wants to prove to everybody, that he is arguably one of the top 1 or 2 goaltenders in this league.
Yeah, you talked about how Carey Price needed to steal 1 or 2 games there, Joel. I think Vasilevskiy stole that game for the Tampa Bay Lightning. He made some absolutely really good saves, and Montreal came and took it to the Tampa mostly for control to play and had the more offensive opportunities than the Lightning. And Vasilevskiy stood tall, and he's the reason they won that game, in my opinion. And so now it's up to Carey Price say, I guess anything you can do, I can do better. So I'm expecting a big game from Carey Price on in Game 3 on is it tomorrow, right?
Yeah, well, our days are all confused right now.
Yeah.
Well,
Friday.
that, and they've got that they decided that they didn't want to play on the weekend either, so they got that 2-day break. Saturday and Sunday, so I couldn't remember when exactly the games were.
Yeah, it's Friday night. I actually have the privilege of producing that one for Sportsnet on Friday night. So, yeah, I was pretty stoked. Actually, I was pretty happy to find that out.
Yeah. I just wanted to say also that the very credit to the Montreal Canadiens though for being able to. I talked about this after the game 1. They need to find a way to create some speed within the neutral zone, and they did that very, very easily through this game. One example was Edmondson did that breakaway pass to Suzuki, or pretty much a breakaway pass to Suzuki. Gave him a really good shot there at the very beginning of the game, and those are the type of things that they need to be doing going forward here to try and get that defense to turn around. I'm talking about the Tampa Bay defense to turn around and start chasing the puck a little bit, and whether that's a dump and chase or finding some way to create some speed through that neutral zone.
I'm looking at the Blake Coleman goal. I might show it here. I don't want to show it full screen because then we get in trouble, and I don't want to get us to get in trouble. But I'm looking at this. First, I want to kind of show what I'm seeing here is if Philip Deneau touches that puck, because he almost does, it's knocked away and it's tied. Like I'm having a bit of a tough time blaming Price for that, because that to me just looks like more of an incredible play by Blake Coleman than it is Carey Price's fault.
And let alone Gaudreau with that pass, those hands. Who thought that he has that in his repertoire?
Yeah. I mean, I think it was definitely a great effort. Again, maybe on 90% of the goaltenders in the league, you'd be like, yeah, what are you going to do? But I just feel like with Carey Price, those are the types of goals that he doesn't often let in, right? Like I said, I mean, I just think that like the first one kind of snuck through underneath the arm, and then there was that one. I think those are goals that Carey would like back that, 90% of the goaltenders in the league probably wouldn't have a problem giving up because they're good goals. But I just feel like Carey wants to cement himself as, one of the best and one of the best ever to do it. And I don't feel like his performance last night would, like I said, I think he'd be the first to tell you like, hey, I didn't have my best stuff, but expecting a big rebound here on Friday night. That's going to be pretty cool to see the barn in Montreal like lit up, and they're still not exactly sure how many people are coming out tomorrow. It's anticipated that the number isn't going to change, but it might. Who knows? It is Quebec after all. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, if Montreal can take these two against Tampa in back-to-back games in 3 and 4, then we got a series. I mean, I think if Tampa wins Game 3 or Game 4, it's going to be a very tough hill to climb for Montreal to win 3 in a row against them or 4 in a row.
I mean, in terms of what was told last night, Quebec health authorities have not allowed more fans in the stands. I do not think that means that there will not be fans wandering St. Catherine Street, downtown Montreal, or wherever else to watch the game, but they're not allowed to go in the arena. In terms of how many, so that I think, in terms of that, but yeah, I think Game 3 here, I think is as monumental for this series because. I hate to say this, Joel, but if Tampa wins Game 3, I think that they win Game 4. I think it is a sweep.
Yeah, and then that's fair. I mean, if Montreal gets behind 3-0, like it's like Carey Price needs to steal 3 out of 4 games for Montreal to try and climb out of that hole. Like it's I don't know if it's ever been done in the Stanley Cup final. But But hopefully, they get a bounce back game in Game 3 here, steal the momentum, and just keep that train rolling throughout Game 4 and the rest of the series.
I think it's a complete miss on Quebec's part there for not allowing more people to be in the arena. Like, once again, the amount of people that will be in St. Catharines Square, shoulder to shoulder. I'm very disappointed that they weren't able to find a way to do that.
Yeah, I agree with you, Devin. I mean, I find it, like, obviously on the surface you can see, like, tens of thousands of people walking around downtown Montreal shoulder to shoulder, like you said, most of them not wearing masks, when you can have them socially distanced more so inside wearing masks. Obviously, I think it has to do with liability, and that's probably the reason they're not letting the fans in, right? It's bad on optics and stuff like that. But I mean, yeah, it's just a shame that, it's been so damn long for this franchise to finally get a team that pushes and gets to the Cup final, and they can't even have, the most raucous crowd in all the NHL in that barn, the biggest building in Canada to host hockey out of any Canadian franchise, and they can't fill it, and they can't figure out a way to even let more people in. Like, I agree with you. I'm pretty disappointed there, but I mean, I understand it. It is what it is. We're in unprecedented times, and what are you going to do, right? But I still feel like the energy is going to be high. Like, the noise in the building, there was times where, and I said this during the Vegas series too, there was times where, music's playing and it's just before puck drop, and it is pretty quiet in that Tampa building. Like, I noticed that. Not a lot of fans, like, waving towels or standing up or getting loud, or you heard a couple go Bolts go chants, but that was pretty much it. I mean,
they also hate the refs, though. Ref You Suck was chanting as well.
Yeah, I heard that one, actually. That was it was pretty funny when I feel like Tampa Bay's, especially Kucherov, is sliding all over the ice left and right trying to get calls last night. I thought it was pretty at times I thought I was watching a soccer match out there, like every single little hook or infraction or bump or whatever, and they turn to the referee and looking for a call, and it's just like, come on, like.
Let alone they showed that one change, I think it was in the second period, where Kucherov, or maybe it was in the third, Kucherov was going off, and he throws a little hip out to, I think it was Armia, or it was a Montreal player, and first of all, the change already happened, so he was on the ice as this sixth man, and second of all, it should have been interference easily. So, like, oh man, the fact that they're wanting calls to be. They want certain calls to be called, and then, oh yeah, no, that one's fine. You saw Kucherov on the bench, shut the door, look around. It's like, okay, I'm good. He knew exactly what he was doing.
Yeah. In terms of comebacks, Toronto in 1942 came back
straight
and defeated the Detroit Red Wings in the Stanley Cup final. In 1945, the Leafs had a 3-0 lead on the Red Wings. The Red Wings tied it, but the Leafs ended up winning the Cup that year as well. So those are two Stanley Cup finals that had a 3-0 comeback in some ways. So it's been a lot of years. So before, and I'm not good at that. It's been nearly 80 years since we've seen a comeback. Speaking of Kucherov. I just one thing that
Weasel. Sorry.
Bless you. I want to put Kucherov just aside for a second here in terms of the stars of the series. It's not. I don't think that the Tampa Bay Stars they've been fine, but it's been the Anthony Cirellis, the Blake Colemans, the Andre Palats that have been the difference in terms of who've been the best Lightnings in this series in comparison to the sort of the middle ground of the Montreal Canadiens. Like, I thought Suzuki was by far and away probably Montreal's best player last night. I didn't mind the Suzuki Caulfield Toffoli line, but I haven't been super enamored with the rest of that middle forward group. I do think Tampa's middle forward group is doing a better job than Montreal's, and I do think that is one of the edges that we're seeing here.
Yeah, I feel like you saw it last night when the Perry and Stahl and Armia line got rolled. You saw them a couple extra times over the Kotkaniemi line and that. But just kind of going back to Tampa's lineup there, like you said, it's those middle of the pack guys and even their bottom six that are kind of getting it done for Tampa right now. But to quote Dougie Hamilton, it's amazing what you can do with a team $16 million over the cap, isn't it?
It's eight. The
You
quote
tell
was
I'm just
18.
sour grapes here this morning. Like, I hate talking about after a loss, but god damn, my team's down 2 games in the Stanley Cup final. I'm allowed to be a little sour.
Well, usually when you come on, it's right after that there's a win. So you missed your game 1 recap. So I think it's your fault, Joel, for not coming on here.
Yeah, I accept that. That's
but credit to Suzuki. He had 9 shots last night. 9. That's unheard of. Regular season, that's hard to do. But in a playoff game, oh man, you got to be in the right spots. You got to get a little bit of puck luck, and I really don't even think that was puck luck for him. He was fantastic last night. And on the broadcast, they mentioned, once everything goes back to the proper divisions, they're in the Atlantic Division together. And for the next decade, you're going to have Braden Point versus Nick Suzuki, which is going to be a fun matchup to watch.
Where I am like, it's with Suzuki. Sorry, Sean, were you going to say something? And I
No.
No, I just won't shut the fuck up. So Sean hasn't had a chance to talk yet today.
kind of. Where is okay in terms of right now? In terms of the North, like we're not in the Atlantic yet. Let's put in the North Division. Where is Nick Suzuki in terms of where would you rank him among North Division centers? Like, obviously, you've got McDavid and Matthews, and probably Scheifele, I would say, would be top 3-ish.
Tavares is up there, too.
Yeah, then you got Pettersson.
Yeah, and then you got Sean Nope, sorry, not Sean Monahan. He is terrible.
He's right up there after the ones you listed off there, Kevin. I think you said you got Matthews, McDavid, Draisaitl plays center. I think depending on the lineup they go with, and it's gonna be fun to watch in terms of how much more development he has, because there's been so much talk about Cole Caulfield and the breakout star that he's been in these playoffs, but to me the biggest breakout star is Nick Suzuki.
Yeah.
Because he's the guy that they needed to be this. For them to go this far, they needed Nick Suzuki to step up and be a true number 1 center. Because going into the season, going into the playoffs, that was the question with this Canadiens team, was whether or not the young center depth was good enough. And with Nick Suzuki alone, it is.
Yeah.
You know who's really surprised me too is Kotkaniemi. I thought that he's been impacting the play. He hasn't been really producing the points, obviously, but I feel like he's doing the little things right here within the first 2 games, and he's surprising me with how effective he has been.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird to see Kotkaniemi play the game with a bag of knuckles, isn't it? Like, he's starting to get chippy out there. He's, shoving guys and hacking guys and whacking guys. And, obviously he's been in the league for a little while now, but you haven't always seen that part of his game. And he's kind of bringing it out more so in the playoffs, right? And it's good. You need that kind of little bit of grit and sandpaper in your game for sure. Not to be, make sure you let guys know you're not going to be thrown around or fucked with, basically, right? So I didn't mind that, but I think you're exactly right. I think Suzuki is the breakout star this season for the Montreal Canadiens. We've seen, obviously, how effective a shooter Cole Caulfield can be and the scoring chances he can generate by himself. Just kind of, getting to the net and having that nose for the net. But, yeah, I think the all-around game, and let's not forget Nick Suzuki's gone up against, pretty much every team that they face top line, right? Like he has. He's done really well against them too. So that's another aspect of his game away from the puck that I think he's starting to excel at, and we're really starting to notice. Oh, hey, yeah, it's he's quite a player.
There's one thing he does need to improve on, though. That's his draws. He hasn't been that as effective as you want to be. You want your kind of number one, number two center to be at the face-off dot, and that's putting a bit more pressure on Phil Deneau and Eric Stahl and Kotkaniemi to try and win those face-offs, because if you can't rely on your top guys to win that possession right off the bat, then it makes it a little bit harder. But he's still young, so he has still time to really improve on that. And he might pull a page out of Sidney Crosby's book, where all he does is in the offseason is take face-offs and train. So he does have the skill there that he can thrive within that, and just kind of rely on that a little bit. But yeah, he just get better in the dot, and we'll be talking, I'm pretty sure, with him being even further up that chart of centers within the NA or the North Division right now. And it's gonna be fun to watch.
The other intriguing part, like another intriguing matchup in the Atlantic next year, will be Suzuki Drake Batherson, who's coming up, I think, in Ottawa as well. I think a guy that I think is on the rise. I'm not saying he's Nick Suzuki, please don't get me wrong, but he's a guy that I definitely think is on the rise for Ottawa. So there's a lot of really good young center depth on the in the Atlantic. One player that I wonder if we are going to have to start to see in this series, with all due respect to former Flame Eric Gustafsson and what he can contribute to the power play. And I, just on a side note, I do agree. There was a stat last night that they had on the broadcast. It was a Sport Logic about Tampa Bay's 5-on-5 time in the offensive zone. I can't remember. I don't know if anyone remembered the time of that, but it was it was quite impressive, that stat, how much time that they spend in the offensive zone 5-on-5. So it's pretty important to win those draws. But also defensively, do we see Alexander Romanov in this series?
I don't think so. I'd be very surprised if they did. It'd be a latch-ditch effort if they do decide to put him into the lineup. The fact that he hasn't played. Has he played at all in this playoffs? Maybe 1-2 games?
He's played.
He has, not in the final, but yes, he's played.
Okay.
He played 2 games. I believe that was in the second round.
So it'd be they've run the course with this defensive core, and I think the reason why you're seeing Gustafsson's minutes slowly creep up is just to give a little bit less to the Four Horsemen, or the Clydesdales, as they were talking about, and they've been named by the media. So I'd be very surprised if we see him. I think they should potentially, or I think they should have brought him in earlier within the playoffs, so that he could get rhythm and get reps within playoff hockey, because he's still a young guy, and I wonder why they haven't been able to trust him. Is it been his defensive game? Is it the fact that he hasn't been listening? Because I throughout the regular season, I thought he played very well. So that's why I'm surprised he hasn't been relied upon here in the playoffs.
I think it's just because Ducharme and the coaching staff have been happy with the 60 men that they've thrown out there, with, as you said, that top 4, and then you've got Merrill and Gustafsson as well. So I think they're just happy with how they played. I think it's time to see him. I think he could add something a little bit different to that blue line, and maybe add some fresh legs. But I agree with you, Dev. I don't think it's going to happen, even though I think it should happen.
Yeah, and I got to agree. I'm with you, Sean. I felt like in game 2 there, Gustafsson was definitely more noticeable. Whether or not, the coaching staff on Montreal told him, hey, go out there, give us a little offense, give us something, like, go ahead. or he just kind of stepped up on his own. But I felt like Merrill was kind of, like I said, I didn't notice him as much. And having those two together, they could be an offensive dynamo when you need a little kick in the ass, right? Or on the power play with his shot there. But I mean, I agree with you guys. I think that we're not going to see him, but it wouldn't hurt to, at this point, to kind of switch things up and try and get a little jump in your lineup for sure.
Well, you definitely need it. The last game they played very well. It's just unfortunate that Vasilevsky was as good as he was, and that was the difference maker. Yeah, exactly. Well, it's either that or you see Brett Kulak back.
I think it might be like logically, it might make more sense to put in Brett Kulak than Romanov, considering that they seem to have more faith in him. To me, what I like about Romanov is one of the things that Vegas didn't do that Tampa Bay is generally doing is getting to the front of the net. And I think Romanov is a guy that is big enough to keep those Tampa forwards away from the front of the net and cause a bit of a disturbance that way. I thought Montreal did a fantastic job eliminating those one-timers on the Tampa Bay power play yesterday. They did a good job on that, but I still think overall this defense at this particular point needs to be. They need a little bit more muscle. That's where I think Romanov comes in. But I don't think that we see him. You're right.
He's not a small guy. No, he can definitely help out with that. And I just look at that and think that they need someone who can sort of. We saw him throw hits, and he's not afraid to throw hits, and maybe they need that on the back end with instead of. Because I think they're keeping Gustafsson there because both Petrie and Weber are not 100%, and so they want to be able to have him as an option on the power play. And I understand that, but I just think Romanov can bring something that a little more energy, a little more gumption that maybe they can build off of.
There's one more person that God love Mikhail Sergachev, but I do think Mr. Josh Anderson needs to pay him a bit of a visit. Just a nice hello. How are you? What are you doing to our players? You need to stop that kind of crap. We're not going to put up with it anymore.
Well, within that, sorry, go
I
for
agree.
it,
Joel. But no, I agree fully. Somebody's got to get in their kitchen for sure. And Josh Anderson, Corey Perry, those are the kinds of guys that you'd expect that. I mean, you saw Perry get in a pretty good shot against Victor Hedman there with the glove punch. But again, you saw Sergachev get pulled out of the pile was at the end of the game there. And even with the Hedman punch where he cross-checks and Perry gives him a good shot, and they both, you notice what they did right after? To the referee. I mean, it's just, I feel like if they're going to keep doing that and that for the Habs to try and get under their skin and rough them up a little bit, they might be penalized for it. And they're just kind of hesitant because nobody really knows exactly what the limit is, how far you can push it. And I do feel like, I will say that, I feel like the last game was officiated a lot better than some of the other games that I've seen in these playoffs. But, you can still see that sometimes tic-tacky hooks and that are called for penalties and taps on the gloves or the stick and stuff are called for penalties when, egregious interferences or like the one on Lehkonen that hit into the boards. Like, I know it was called interference, but for me, that was a clear boarding penalty. Like, shoved him and you saw the end result. He missed the second period. I was happy that he was able to come back in the third, but that looked pretty bad there for a little bit. And it's tough. I mean, I'm just pretty disappointed that the Habs are down 2-0. I'm not going to lie. I'm a little salty.
Yeah, well, as far as Sergachev goes, they've been able to run him. I think that he has a bit of a lower body tweak, and I think they've realized that, and they've been trying to just wear him down slowly. Because if there's a player that is underrated on that defense for Tampa Bay, it is Mikhail Sergachev, and he's a feisty fucking dude. He does not put up with any shit. He's a big guy, and
what a great addition he would have been on a Montreal blue line right about now, huh?
That's exactly what I was just about to say. Honestly, you talk about having a Romanov, man. That's it's a 9-day difference between the two. But yeah, you just got to keep on running him. You got to keep on doing that. Whether it's Josh Anderson, Philip Deneau was the one who hit him at the end of the game, and Sergachev was like, "Oh, what?" And I can't stand that. I can't stand when players, especially NHL players, look through like, "What?" It drives me nuts. But you really just with that entire defense, even though they are as big as they are, that is the way to play playoff hockey. Dump and chase. Get it on the forecheck. I know Montreal isn't that big, but you can still wear them down slowly. And something happened with Sergachev. I believe it was in game 1 with his foot or ankle. And yeah, they've been able to capitalize on that. And that's what started the scrum that Joel was talking about with the cross check by Perry and the punch to the face to Hedman. So I love how that game ended, because it showed a little bit more resilience from Montreal and Tampa Bay being like, hey, well, if you're going to do this stuff, well, we're not going to take it either. So it's going to be very interesting game 3 at the Bell Center.
Yeah. Is there any other topics within this game that we need to get into?
I think we're good.
All right.
I just want to pose a question to you guys here. So,
good. We love these questions. They create great debate.
Well, I kind of been thinking about this, and I know we touched base on this. Was it a couple podcasts ago? I brought it up, and I brought it up again with the Dougie Hamilton comment. But do you think that, like, with Tampa Bay being so far over the salary cap, with players coming off of LTIR right before the playoffs kind of thing, so they can make that cap limit, do you think that teams are going to be penalized retroactively, like, say, the Vancouver Canucks were in the Luongo recapture penalty, that they're still paying?
I'm just gonna leave because Sean's about to explode.
Yeah, I told you I'm salty this morning. I gave you guys fair warning.
It's not gonna happen. It should. And it's not necessarily the fact that Kucherov was injured and came back. It's how they manipulated it to get even more players. It's the acquisitions of Anders Nielsen and Marian Gaborik, who were acquired specifically so that they could exceed the cap more. That I think needs to be looked at. And I think the way I look at it is I don't understand this picking and choosing of what is bad cap circumvention and what is good cap circumvention in the eyes of Gary Bettman, because someone asked him that in his State of Union address, and he just scoffed. He was full on smug Gary when he answered that question. And I look at that and I think it's pushing the limit and the loophole too far, in my opinion. Just like how the Canucks did and other teams did with those backdiving contracts, that I don't understand why this is okay and that isn't. That's my issue. And as much as I would love, I think there should be some sort of punishment for it, or at least change it up so that, like, if you do make these, you can still do these type of trades and acquisitions, but there's some sort of penalty for doing so. And if you're willing to pay that penalty to make that work and go for a 1 or 2 year cup run, fine, go for it. But I think there needs to be something, because I don't think this is. Like I said, we talk about the lack of consistency in on ice officiating. How about the lack of consistency in the off ice officiating? In terms of salary cap and what is or isn't punishable for circumventing the cap. And I think that's the frustration that a lot of fans are having with this.
Yeah, they just need to. God, Gary Bettman is a lawyer, for God's sakes, and he's surrounded by lawyers. So you think that they'd be able to be like, okay, well, let's go down the rabbit hole with these certain regulations and rules, and figure out, okay, well, what if I was a team, what could I do? And that's just exactly what teams have figured out to do. Toronto did it. Doesn't make it right, and obviously Tampa Bay's done it. And it's like having more than, I believe it's more than $10 million in LTIR. That's where you get the relief, right?
I'm not exactly sure the whole thing, but yeah, because Kucherov was injured for so long, and he makes $9.5 million on the cap. And then they went out and again traded for Marian Gaborik and Anders Nielsen, who combined are over $7 million on their LTIR. And because they were acquired before the season, and they could I believe they were able to put them on their like off-season LTIR. Because of that, it was basically free cap space. And it's, like I said, I don't understand what makes good cap circumvention and what makes bad cap circumvention.
Yeah, I'm totally with you there, Sean. And I think, like you said, a lot of people are kind of confused. A lot of hockey fans are confused and like, why is this the way it is? Like, I don't understand, but I feel like if you're leaving, whether or not a player comes back up to the team and team officials, you're going to have this kind of scenario, right? Like, does everybody think that Kucherov wasn't good to play right up until the start of the playoffs? No, of course he probably could have played, but obviously they're circumventing the cap, right? Like, and I'm not trying to point the finger and just say Tampa Bay is like the only team that's doing this, because they're not. There's a lot of teams that are doing this, right? Like Montreal, for example, you could throw them under the bus in that and too. But I think that it's definitely something that has to be looked at by the league, and like you said, Devin, I think it was funny that Gary Bettman scoffed when he was asked about this question, because it's like, it's a legit argument. Like, there's a lot of people that are pointing this out, like Dougie Hamilton and others that are like, what's going on here? Like, if, one thing's not okay in terms of signing long-term contracts, which was under the rules, that was totally fine at the time. And now you're having this, which is totally fine at the time under the rules. Like, they're both cap circumvention, aren't they? Like, I'm with you, Sean, where I'm just kind of confused, right? And again, maybe I'm just a bitter Montreal fan that's pissed off that their team is down 2-0 to a team that's well over the salary cap. But I digress. That's a conversation for another day, I guess.
Well, I do think every team is trying to do that in some way, shape, or form. I mean, look at San Jose as an example. Kevin LeBlanc, he signed a $1 million contract for 1 year, which was a head scratcher because everyone was like, you could make way more than that. But then he signed a $4 million contract. I'm not saying that that's the same of what Kucherov did at all. It's not. It's very different. But there are teams doing that. I don't know. I guess for me, I totally understand where everybody is coming from. But I get if Montreal was doing it, or if our team was doing it, I don't think we would be calling it brilliant. That's the other problem with this.
You're not wrong.
So
I'm on your side, Kev. Honestly, it's unfortunate that other teams are taking it to that extent. But if you're looking for those loopholes and you're able to do it, then might as well do it if it's going to make your team better. It's just unfortunate that it's Tampa Bay.
Yeah, right.
Like, look. I mean, just to bring this to the Canucks for a second here. Don't you wish that Jim Benning had this sort of creativity in his brain to, at least with all of these contracts, all of these fourth line contracts that he has, don't you wish that there was some sort of creativity in him to figure this out, to fix it?
I think that's asking a lot. That's asking for a miracle, man.
That's like That's like asking Brad Treliving to actually make a trade and not be the bridesmaid.
Entirely fair. Entirely fair.
I guess my
That's
saltiness
not fair at all.
spread out to all you guys here this morning.
Sorry, Joel, what was that?
I said, I guess my saltiness spread out to all you guys here this morning.
Well, it just gives Sean a chance to cherry pick on point, like mostly pointed at me. He's more than happy to do that. And by the way, I want to thank you for taking as much airtime as you have, Joel, because Sean never shuts up. So it's nice to now actually hear his voice on his podcast as much.
Oh,
well, you can see why I got into radio, right? I was always told I have the perfect face for radio, and I never shut the fuck up.
Oh yeah, I also have the perfect face for radio as well. Yeah.
But back to the point is, yeah, you do wish that your team could do that and all that and everything like that, but that doesn't make it. I think I'd be happy that they were exploiting the loopholes. Like people were pointing out that the Canucks were over the cap in 2011, but that was only because I feel like the way they did it was different, right? They weren't they. They did it because there was injuries in the season that allowed them to do that. That's to me, that's different than legit trading for injured players to basically artificially inflate your cap space. And I think that's where again, it's like doing the backdiving contracts and then pushing it just a little bit farther.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just bringing in that different perspective, and you know.
And you're right, Kevin. But that's like saying. I feel like it's playing into people's emotions, even though the actual rational answer is it's circumventing the cap, and then the questioning how is this different than the backdiving contracts that they felt that they had to retroactively punish teams for.
Yeah, I'm the inconsistency messaging wise from rules like cap circumvention to discipline for plays to the calls on the ice it is a thematic inconsistent issue in the NHL. I think that all four of us can certainly agree on that. You look at what happened with Tom Wilson again and compare it to some other things. That's an example. Calls on the ice, things like that. They're not consistent. And it is frustrating for the fan base.
Yep.
Anyway, anything else on that?
No, I just thought I threw a little gas on the fire this morning. That's all. I'm good now. I'm good. I got it out of my system. I'm good.
Okay, hey, Phil, Danault or Hyman? Who would you rather have?
I'm gonna let you guys answer first. I got to chew on this one a bit here.
We actually did discuss this. I think I came away with Danault. Sean came away with Hyman, if I'm correct.
And surprisingly enough, I came away with Danault. Now, the only reason why is because it's not about the player. There has to be the full picture involved of how much money is he going to get in comparison to Zach Hyman. I believe that Zach Hyman is going to get a longer term and more money than Philip Danault will. So that's my reasoning. Plus, he's a shutdown center, and centers are good centers, and shutdown centers are harder to find, but they just don't get paid as much as I believe Zach Hyman will.
Yeah, I'm not sure. And that's where we got into the more is that digging into that whether or not Hyman what it is, because I saw that they're expecting Danault to be 4.5 plus, right? So.
Which is fair. I still think Hyman's going to get more.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Obviously, there's more. I feel like there's more offensive upside to Zach Hyman's game than perhaps Philip Danault's. But like you said, Devin, like it's one of those cases like, you know, what do you put a price on a guy that would play third, fourth line center in a shutdown role on any NHL club? Like what's that value worth per season, right? And it's not only that he's a shutdown, like he's also able to chip in offensively, right? It's not like he's, you know, fucking Ryan Reeves out there and he's just there to, you know, cause trouble on the fourth line kind of thing, right? He can actually give you a bunch of upside. I'm not sure, like I can't remember off the top of my head what his point totals are or anything like that, but I mean that for me that's kind of a toss up. Like really, like I think especially in this postseason we've seen the aspects of Danault's game that really have rounded out, right? Like, and not only in the face-off draw, but there's play away from the puck. Like he's a really skilled center that, like I said, I think a lot of NHL teams would like a guy like that in his third, fourth line in that center slot. But yeah, I mean Zach Hyman does give you that offensive upside. It's for me, it's a tough one. I think I would take Philip Danault just based on like what you said, Devin. It's the cap hit, the bigger cap hit that you're going to have to cough up to Zach Hyman versus what you would pay Philip Danault. I mean, whether or not, you know, that's a significant amount of money, it's probably only like maybe $1 million apart or so, maybe a little more than that. But just having that, you know, especially in today's day and age, having that room on your cap to, you know, extend those young players that are going to be coming up for Montreal, and that every little bit that you can have in terms of cap room would certainly help out. So yeah, I think I would take Danault, but it's definitely a toss up for me. Yeah.
Fair enough. Let's go backwards here in terms of the news. The LA Kings have acquired Victor Arvidsson from the Predators for a second-round draft pick in 2021 and a third-round pick for 2022. I do know that this was a player I think the Flames were in on, so it's possibly Sean's shot at Brad Treliving being a bridesmaid again. It may be closer to accurate than you, but I don't know. I don't know that for sure.
Cherry picking there, Kev. You don't know that.
I don't know that. I do know that they were in talk. They were in talks with Nashville for a right shot forward, and Victor Arvidsson would have made sense with the Flames, but he's what I'm intrigued that the Kings are doing this because you look at the new Pacific Division. Other than probably the Golden Knights, and depending on where you look at the Oilers, the playoffs are wide open, and I don't think the Kings are maybe not be as far off as people think.
They still have Andre Kopitar leading that group. He's only 33. Adding Victor Arvidsson to that right side of the lineup, I think it definitely helps. I don't think they are as far off as many people think they are. Especially with Cal Pettersson stepping onto the scene and kind of taking that first that number one job away from Jonathan Quick. I think they're a lot closer than people think that they are, and potentially you could have a couple of those draft picks jumping into the lineup next year. You could potentially see Quinn Byfield taking a step and getting into that lineup. So I think they look at that, like you said, Kev, they're looking at that Pacific Division, and outside of those two heavy hitters of Edmonton and of Vegas, it's wide open for anybody. And depending on whether or not Blake is thinking, Rob Blake, the GM, is thinking that that their team is gonna take that next step, or that they weren't really at the potential that they could have been. They could be the New York Rangers of the West, and thinking that they could definitely push forward.
Yeah, it all comes down to to their blue line. Like, they've got a lot of exciting young players that coming up front, and then like you said, they've got Kopitar, Dustin Brown, still a good veteran presence. Adding Arvidsson, Iafalo's a solid player, but that blue line is where my questions lie with the Kings, and whether or not that blue line can stand up to what could be a very high octane Pacific Division next year.
I really feel like, especially with the addition of Seattle, like we're not really sure what Seattle's going to look like yet, but we anticipate that, given that they're playing under the same kind of rules as Vegas did, that they're going to probably have a fairly competitive team right off the hop. So that's going to make things a little tougher, being that they're playing in the same division. But yeah, I'm kind of with you guys. I don't know if, Drew Doughty's level of play and some of the players on that LA back end on a team like that will be, ready to take the next jump this next season, or maybe a couple seasons. I think, obviously their prospect pool is really deep in LA. Players like Tyler Madden, which they got in the Toffoli trade, and now Arvidsson, Arvidsson's got 3 more years left on his deal. And he's 27, so he'll be there during that kind of transitional period for LA during the next season or two, where they kind of see what they got. But to give up a second and third for Nashville when that's going on, Arvidsson's 30-40 point player or something like that, if I can remember off the top of my head, somewhere in that ballpark. Like, he doesn't give you a whole bunch of offensive upside. So, I mean, I understand there's 3 years of control. It's a decent number. I think he's just over $4 million per season. But I don't know. I mean, I guess it's a little bit surprising, like why, LA would go after a guy that's only going to be on the roster 3 years, when essentially, like, if they're in the Jim Benning formula, they're 3 years away from being 3 years away, right? So, I mean, I don't really understand for both sides exactly why this deal is made, but I think it's going to work out. Giving up a second and a third is obviously a little bit of a steep price for a player that's only going to give you 30, 40 points, but I guess we'll see what happens in LA this next couple of years and what's going to come out of this trade.
It really comes down to whether or not Arvidsson can recapture his form from a couple seasons ago, where he was putting up 30 goals. 16-17 through 18-19, he was basically a 30 goal player. And if he's doing that for LA, they're laughing.
Yeah, that's just it, right? Like, you're kind of banking on him getting up to that plethora that he was on again, or what have you. But I think his play is obviously dipped in the last couple of seasons. Now, whether or not he's playing with an injury or something, like, obviously we don't know what's going on kind of behind the scenes, but I think there's been a noticeable difference in terms of his level of play across the last couple seasons or so, right? So I mean, like, if he can get up to that, then it's a great deal for LA. But if not, then you just gave away a second and a third for a guy that's probably going to play on your third line on a developing team if he's not able to find his game.
Now, if we're looking at it from Nashville's point of view, David Poile, the GM of Nashville, if you're thinking about the expansion draft, I know that Ekholm was on the trading block there, and no one really took him. Or it's either that, or they decided to keep him because they were close. But if you look at that defense, they have Riosi, Ellis, and Ekholm, who are 31, 30, and 31. And you look at the contracts up front with Duchesne and Johansson playing or at $8 million apiece for the next 3 to 4 years. Man, it kind of makes you wonder what David Poile's doing, but obviously he's doing it for a reason. And the only thing I can think of is for the expansion draft, because I believe Dante Fabro, who they're very high on the defensive there, is potentially could get exposed. So to me, that smells all of expansion draft.
Yeah, that's it. To me, that's what this was getting something for a good player, but giving them a little more flexibility expansion draft wise, because they have to protect Roman Josi with the no movement clause. You've got Ellis and Ekholm, who I think you should be protecting. And then Dante Fabro is an automatic protect as well. So I think they're going to be going that 8 skater route, and with and then you've got Philip Forsberg and Luke Kunin. I think are probably your no-brainers up front. And you don't have to worry about Arvidsson now, and you've got some extra draft capital to work with now.
Yeah, and you've got Philip Tomasino that should be ready soon-ish, and then Luke Evangelistic as well. A couple of prospects up there, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see what's going on there in Nashville and where they're at, because they got off to a terrible start, which was part of why the Matthias Ekholm rumors started. Then they got themselves into the playoffs and gave Carolina a bit of a run. So be very interesting to see where Nashville is at. And then you've got another situation where you've got Askarov. The unmade bed is coming. So what do you do in goal? Also, that's another interesting situation in Nashville as well. I love the nickname, the unmade bed. I will keep that for Askarov forever. So
I was about to say, we're getting all like these throwback sayings with unmade bed, and then Joel throwing out a team like that with the Kings involved. Like, this is great.
Great. Love the Askarov.
But you got Pekka Rinne is a UFA, and UC Saros is an RFA this summer. So I think like Saros is your intermediary. What they do with Pekka Rinne and what Pekka Rinne does is interesting to see what happens. But I don't know what Askarov's what his situation is going to be looking like when he actually comes over too.
Yeah, that's a point.
Well, Saros, he'll be their number one. I don't think they'll bring back Pekka Rinne. I think he's done. There are some good UFA goalies that they could sign to have maybe 1-2 tandem combo, especially with having $22 million in cap space as of right now. Granted, they do have some people to sign, like Dante Fabro, but that's going to be a bridge deal. Really, outside of that, it's pretty open. Maybe bring back a Mikkel Granlund. We probably want to bring him back and not lose him for nothing. But that's about it for big names that they have to sign. So UFA goalies, just to name off a couple, you have Grubauer, you have Smith, Reimer, Elliott, Rask, Dreger, Bernier, Rinne, Halak, and Allmark. And those are all formidable kind of 1A, 1B goaltenders within this league. So, and I don't know what that's going to be, what the price range of that is going to be demanding within the COVID bullshit, GMs or owners not wanting to pay top money. The majority of owners don't want to pay top money for goaltenders, and where everybody is at the cap. So there's a good possibility that they have a good 1-2 punch there in that.
Yeah, and just looking up on Elite Prospects, it looks like Askarov's contract is through till next season. So he won't be coming over this season. So I think they definitely have to, even if they go back to Saros and Rinne. Like, I think it's I think that's a decent tandem that they can work with. Let alone they've also got Connor Ingram signed as well. So I think it's whatever they do. I think Saros is your 1A or bona fide starter next season.
Yeah. But I mean, they are in a very interesting situation is there for sure. The name Duncan Keith came up. Speaking of old school villains, Duncan Keith, an old school villain of the Vancouver Canucks, looks, according to Elliot Freeman, a trade is in the works to a team in the Pacific Northwest, which would
Western Canada
near Penticton. So geographically, that is Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, Seattle. So let's go through the teams here. Let's start with Vancouver. I don't see a fit. Does anyone here see a fit? Duncan Keith to Vancouver?
Nope.
Okay, that was quick.
I'd be surprised.
Yeah.
That'd be another Messier situation.
It could be. Now there's a few things on this. Like yesterday when this news broke, I was producing at Sportsnet and our text message inbox just got lit up with Canucks fans saying, "Oh my God, please God, no." It was like the Michael Scott meme over and over and over again in the text message inbox. Now, the one resounding thing that we did see a lot of, or at least hear a lot of from Canucks fans, was if you could make a deal for Louis for Keith straight up, they would take that deal, obviously, right? Because, I mean, obviously, Duncan Keith, I think he's, 36, 35, 36, somewhere in that range. And he's still got 3 years left on that deal.
2 years left.
Okay, so and from what I think, it's like the actual cap hit is higher than actual cash he's to be paid those next 2 seasons. So
yes,
if you're looking for like a cheaper blue liner that might eat up a little bit of your cap hit, but has less in terms of what you're actually paying him, I can understand, any team here on the West Coast entertaining that thought. Obviously, it's a little higher cap hit than what he's going to give you on that back end. He's not the same player he was 10 years ago. He's not the same player he was 5 years ago. But I still think he could, give you something on a hockey club. If you choose not to re-sign Edler, does it make sense for Vancouver to perhaps go after him if they can get rid of perhaps some contracts or some players that they weren't really too high or too keen on, like a Sven Berchi or Roussel, or get rid of some of those guys to take someone on like that. Yeah, I could see it. Do I think it's going to happen? No, probably not. For me, I mean, I think it makes a lot more sense for him to go to either Seattle and be their captain for the 2-3 seasons he's got left, and take that role on, or potentially move out to one of the Berta teams.
Okay, let's before we get to Seattle, does anyone want to respond? Wait. Does anyone want to respond to the Keith for Louis Roussel?
It wouldn't work because you're extending a bad cap space for an extra year. The thing with Louis is he's only got 1 year left. Roussel, only 1 year left. Like if you look at what the Canucks have right now in terms of bad cap, it's almost all of it gets off the books after this upcoming season. So the only way that would work in my mind that you could actually sell it would be, Louis going over, and Chicago's retaining cap on that, so that his cap hit is only like 2.5-3 million. I think that's the only way that you could actually sell it to the fan base without it being an absolute PR nightmare. And even then, I think it still would be a PR nightmare.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's exactly what my thought was, Sean, was that if Chicago was able to retain some salary, because realistically, Vancouver only has 2 NHL defensemen signed next year. You need to sign Edler, Hamonic, Juolevi, Chatfield, and Quinn Hughes, and that's all you got. So it would make sense that he would be coming or going to Vancouver if that was the case. But yeah, you have to find a way to make that cap work, because you have to sign Pettersson and Hughes on top of that.
Yeah,
and their cap space is 15.8 right now.
Okay, so let's toss Calgary. I'm going to say I don't see it. I don't see a fit in Calgary. You have Giordano. I think that they're going to find a way to they may not protect Giordano, but I don't think that they're going to lose Giordano. So you already have that veteran defensive presence there. You also have Chris Tanev there. There's no real need within that lineup for Duncan Keith. That's sort of where I'm seeing. Is anyone seeing anything different there?
I'm with you, Kev. I don't see it being a fit at all. He'd be a good depth defenseman on any one of these teams. Realistically, he really would at the right price. What he's at right now is just a bit too much. So you'd be sending either a B. My guess is a B-level prospect back with either one of these teams that he could be moving to, and obviously retaining salary on top of that. But yeah, as far as the Flames go, it's a no-go for me.
So it leaves Edmonton or Seattle. I could see where Seattle it works is Joel's right. You have you have your captain, you have your first captain for sure. You have your mentor. If you're picking a defenseman number 2, let's throw a name, Brant Clark. You've got your mentor, and you've got a defenseman that you're building into someone that you're building into the organization. And Joel, I don't know if Seattle is going to be competitive off the start. I think that they want to take their time. I think they're building for something. That's my sense. And then with Edmonton, I know that they've wanted more. I'm using quotes when I say this, gray beards. They want more of a veteran presence. The problem that I'm having with Edmonton, and you won't have Clefbaum back, but I don't know. Is he 4? Is he 3-4? Do you have him sitting 4? He's not. You're no way he's ahead of Nurse. There's no way that.
He's on your second. Yeah, he's on your second pair, and because you look at that blue line, and yeah, Nurse is your top pair guy. You've got Larson and Barry that need to be you need to decide what you're doing, but they're on the right side.
Yeah.
On the left side, you have Chris Russell, bottom pair defenseman, Broberg, Caleb Jones, William Lagesson, all sort of younger defensemen that you may need some more mentoring, and that's Duncan Keith would be a good mentor for all of them.
Yeah, to me, if it goes to Edmonton, I think you'd be pairing with Ethan Bear, or even a Bouchard. That to me, that just makes the most sense. And yeah, just being a mentor up there and getting them to be the players that they need to be. As far as Seattle goes, I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be that. To me, that it makes sense, but it doesn't make sense. It makes sense in the fact that, yeah, Kev, I think all of us agree on here that it is going to be a slow burn for Seattle to become a competitive NHL franchise, and it might take a little bit of time. But that might be the move to make for Chicago, is to do that. But it's whether or not Duncan Keith is wanting to be competitive, or if he wants to just go off into the sunset and have some fun doing it. And if I was the Blackhawks, I'd be wanting to make sure that he's happy, because he has done so much for that franchise. I think that the amount of respect that they have for him will be shown with what he wants to do.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you guys. I think that, any of these teams that we've discussed previously in terms of Duncan Keith potentially going to, I don't think he's playing in like the top 2 role. I think he's going to be probably almost any team, their 4, 5, 6 depth defenseman. But even that, a guy that can eat up those kind of minutes, he's still okay defensively, and that I feel like there are some potential fits there among those Pacific Northwest or Western Canadian teams, as you said, but we'll see. I mean, again, I think if you're looking at a team that perhaps does have a little bit of cap space that can eat that little difference in terms of actual money owed versus what the cap hit for the season will be, there's a deal there to be made. I still think, even at his age, he's still able to be a quality NHL defenseman, right? Like I said, he's not playing, top pairing minutes, or he's probably their 4th or 5th depth defenseman on any of these clubs. But, what's the price tag on a defenseman that's going to give you that in the NHL nowadays? It's probably around like 3-4 million kind of range. Like, realistically, we're only talking about, $1 million, $1.5 million or whatever in cap difference, right? But for an owner that wants to kind of save money, perhaps not paying out that actual cap number and paying a little less on what's remaining on another one of those back end deals. I think he signed like a 13-year deal or something a while ago. It might be enticing, and it might be, a good fit for a veteran, a guy that's won 3 cups to mentor a young defensive core like that. Even though he's not contributing top minutes, he can still be, that steady hand on the back end, right? And I think that's a player like Keith and the resume that he has would be kind of appealing for a lot of teams that have perhaps younger defensemen or, teams that need a little mentoring on that back end, like Edmonton, you said, Kevin, they need more graybeards, right? And I think that would kind of make sense. Now, obviously, I think the only big deterrent is his cap hit, right? So, but it's interesting. I guess we'll have to kind of wait and see with what's going to happen in terms of Duncan Keith getting dealt.
And the one other thing is that he would probably be on the second power play unit, and having him quarterback in that second unit, I think is very intriguing, having that depth.
Yeah, if you're the Oilers, you want to have some options there, and I don't know if you do at this particular point. I mean, you've got to find a way to not have it so much that it is all on McDavid and Draisaitl so much. And you need to find offense elsewhere. So, yeah, that's sort of, I think, it'll come down to Edmonton. To me, Seattle and Edmonton are the two possibilities there for sure. Jonathan Toews was in the news. He took all of last season off. Did anyone remember that Jonathan Toews took all of last season off?
It's a lot easier if you're in fantasy. Playing fantasy hockey, that makes it easier to see who's on what and doing what.
But
I think it was, sorry, Kevin. I think it was just kind of weird in that, like you said, like some people kind of forgot that Jonathan Toews, he's taking the whole season off. Because when he went down, it wasn't really sure like what happened. It was just like, Jonathan Toews has this kind of not mystery injury, but like, there's something going on with him where he's going to need to take, the season off kind of thing. And now obviously with the news coming out, it kind of makes sense a little more. But yeah, it was pretty eye-opening to hear kind of what he had been dealing with.
Yeah, he had what they called chronic immune response syndrome, but he is excited to get back to playing. I would imagine the NHL has missed him. He's still sorry, Sean. Sorry, Joel. Jonathan Toews is one of the best clutch players of all time. Historically, I don't think he's the same as he used to be. There's no question about it. I don't think he should be on team. If the Canadians go to the Olympics, I don't think Jonathan Toews should be on Team Canada. I'll make that controversial position, but still, a guy I think well respected in the league.
I agree with you, though. I don't think that he will be on Team Canada. There's too many other good players. He's lost some foot speed. He's still a great shutdown center, but overall, there's better players out there for Team Canada. But yes, I've missed having him and seeing him in the lineup. He is a Captain Serious, as he's been called as his nickname. He's a good player. So I'm excited that. He's wanting to come back and willing to come back and is healthy enough to come back as of right now. Because he is especially if you are a fan of the Blackhawks, he was sorely missed throughout this past season.
Yeah. Anything else on that?
Oh, famous 2021 words. I'm on mute.
Yeah, he was one of the most clutch players in the league. We don't know what he's going to be look like coming back, so I don't think anyone penciling him into the Olympic roster, I think, is getting too far ahead of themselves. I don't think your take there, Kev, is controversial at all. I just hope that he can come back, play, and be happy, because it's definitely something that you can tell wore on him. And then maybe we'll get to see his greasy chin strap mutton chops again here soon.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Jonathan Toews as a player and as a leader, obviously you can't say enough about the guy. He's been a class act once he's been in the league the whole time. It's great to see a player of his caliber come back. Obviously, yeah, like you guys said, he's not going to be at the same caliber as he was, 10 years ago or what have you when Chicago was winning all those cups. But I agree. I don't think that I just don't think he has the foot speed or the capability to be better than, 4 other Canadian centers to make the Olympic team. I don't. But I guess the silver lining for the Blackhawks franchise is that he is coming back and that it's a nice little distraction right now from what else has been going on in Chicago there. I think that's a big plus for their franchise to kind of perhaps get the headlines off of, the allegation that happened in the front office and the covering up of sexual assault allegations and what have you. But I'm happy for Toews that he's able to return and that he's healthy enough to play hockey again. Even as a fan of a rival, like I'm a Canucks fan as well. That I've seen him slay my team enough times, but he's one of the good guys in the game, and you hope for guys like that to stay healthy and stay in the game for sure.
Let alone be a mentor to Kirby Dach, who is supposed to be a very, very good player within this league. And you also have Dylan Strome over there as well, who's kind of taken up his spot there on the top line. I don't think he was even a top line player when he was still playing 2 years ago. But overall, he's sorely missed within that franchise.
But Joel makes a good point. Let's not forget that story of the allegations, and it still has to be something that I do hope, and I'm really appreciative of the people that are covering that story with the depth that they are. And we were talking about other Chicago Blackhawk things, and that's fine, but I agree with Joel that's. I'm not saying that the organization is doing a distraction technique here, but
the timing certainly helped out, didn't it?
Yeah. Anything else before I have a closing thing I want to bring up? But is there any other topics that I missed?
Yeah. You're missing a huge one in Leafs Nation here, Kev. Huge. No, it's not that big, but it kind of is. Freddie Anderson has been has come out, and his Claude Lemieux, I believe is his agent, has come out and said that he is willing to come back to Toronto even as a 1A 1B tandem with Jack Campbell. So I think that's pretty interesting, and that they are working together to figure out term and cap hit for that. So if you're a Leafs fan or hate the Leafs, there's some news for you.
We also have the official hiring of the Coyotes did with their new coach Andre Chernier.
Oh right, thank you. I forgot about him.
See what happens out of there. Speaking of a team that has had issues with contentious issues in the past, I think hope that they can find a way to move on and keep and build something there. But it also sounds like they're at an impasse with Connor Garland, and maybe we see a trade with Connor Garland here soon.
Yes, I forgot about that. Thank you. Yeah, that is they haven't spoken to him, according to there's a tweet. They haven't been spoken to him in at least a month. If I'm a team, I'm absolutely looking at him. With all due respect to Jim Matheson's, he's only 165 pounds. Who cares? He can score, and he is definitely a guy I think can fit in a lot of lineups.
He plays bigger than that too. Like he is. Yeah. He's built from the mold of the Gallaghers and players like that, where he's in it, and he's not backing down. So he's someone that any team should be, if they can find a way to make it work, they should be in on that.
Jeremiah in the chat says Doug Gilmour was 165 pounds. That's true. A lot of people forget that. Yeah.
It's not the size of the dog in the fight. It's the was it
the size of the fight in the dog.
The size of the fight in the dog, and we're seeing it with Brendan Gallagher. Yanni Gourde is another one on Tampa who plays bigger than you think than he is. Flames have a few. Yeah, Flames have a few. The Canucks have someone coming up right now. Yeah, he's a guy to watch out. He's got that in him as well, and that you need those players. It's not all about size; it's about speed, tenacity, and just getting in on the forecheck and just being an absolute pain in the ass to the opposing team. And that's what Connor Garland does. Like he's found his scoring touch, but he's always been a bit more of a pest.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like, across the history of the NHL, even looking back like 30 years ago, you had a player like Theo Fleury that was kind of filling that role, the small, aggressive kind of guy. And then you got a little more skilled in a guy like Martin St. Louis, was able to put up, 100-point seasons as a really small guy. He's listed as, I think, 5'9" on the NHL website. In reality, we all knew he was like 5'6" at best. But that small, skilled forward, where, even 10 years ago, but further on beyond that, 20, 30 years ago, you just didn't really see a whole lot of them break through to the NHL unless they were, something really special like those guys that I mentioned. I think you're seeing a lot more of not necessarily smaller players, but more skilled forwards come through because those are the skills that are translating to today's NHL. You don't have to be a big rough and tumble crash the net guy like a Josh Anderson to be effective, right? Like you can do it in a smaller package. I think a lot of teams are kind of recognizing that those types of gritty players, those middleweights, they don't have to be 6'4" and 225 or something to be effective for your hockey club, to be a pest and to stir shit up, right? Like Claude Lemieux wasn't the biggest guy in the world either, but he was really effective. And I think, when you can play that type of role and chip in offensively, there's a lot of upside for players like that.
Yep, for sure. A couple of other comments. Ryan C. Habs in 6. We'll see. Been a great series. Look for not over until the home team loses. Hope you guys are able to combat the heat. Well, it's cloudy here, so the heat is kind of dissipated here.
Lucky.
Yeah. Some sad news out of Kamloops yesterday. The president and CEO of the Blazers, Don Moores, passed away at the age of 65. He also was the publisher and Black Place Regional Kamloops This Week publisher, Black Press Regional President. Been with the Blazers for, I want to, just looking up here, he was playing golf and unfortunately just passed away, and just very sad. He was hired actually 5 years ago yesterday. He was hired as president and CEO of the Kamloops Blazers and passes away. It's very sad.
Well, I mean, it is very sad. I want to bring a bit of light to that. If you're going to die, no better place than a golf course, honestly.
There's a couple of places, but I will just
Yeah, don't worry, Kevin. I'll let you skate on that one. That's fine.
Yeah,
but I lived in Kamloops for 10 years. Right before I came down to Vancouver here about just shy of 3 years ago to take the broadcast program at BCIT, which Kevin just graduated from as well. And by all accounts, from everybody that I knew that knew him in Kamloops, he was a great guy. One of our BCIT alum colleagues, Chad Clausen, whose dad played for the BC Lions, he posted on his Twitter that he had just done an interview just days before about the capacity levels at the Sandman Center and how shocked he was. Obviously, with passing, sudden passing, it's terrible, and you think of the family because as someone that's experienced that, when my dad passed away, it was very sudden. You didn't get to say goodbye, and you kind of feel for the family in that that's never a good thing. But yeah, it's sad to hear of his passing, and for the people in Kamloops and the Blazer Nation that are grieving him today. I feel you, and I wish him and his family all the best, and condolences for sure.
Yeah, apparently he did an interview on Radio NL. From my understanding, it was on Monday about capacity. So yeah, very sad and sudden. But let's leave it there. How do we follow everyone?
Well, there's one more thing I'd like to talk about.
Thank you.
We, as of today, NCAA players are allowed to make money off of their name, image, and likeness.
Yes.
So that's a huge step. I hope that this is also something that can help them in a hockey aspect. Allow for more freedom of moving back and forth between CHL and NCAA, because I think there's our players that are playing in NCAA or playing in the CHL that would love to go down to the NCAA because it might help them with their development, let alone getting some schooling, but they can't because they play in the CHL. So I hope that this is the start of opening that door up a little bit, and as well as it's a fantastic change, so that there are as student athletes that can actually make money, and instead of having to rely on just food stamps and everything, because there are unfortunately athletes that have to do that, especially when they're not on the bigger the bigger platform sports like football and basketball and especially female athletes as well.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything Sean said just there. Now, to start off this, I don't think that I'm going out on a limb with saying that, anybody that does their homework on the NCAA knows it's not the most politically correct organization in the world. They have a long history of being corrupt and basically making money and making millions and if not billions of dollars on the backs of these athletes that give everything. Now, I understand the argument on the one side where you could say, hey, these athletes are getting, compensation in terms of their scholarships and stuff, but a lot of athletes aren't. Some athletes are walk-on athletes, or some athletes are, like you said, struggling to make ends meet. To me, it's ridiculous that, even if you are giving a scholarship to a player or something like that, that they cannot make money off of their own likeness. Meaning, if they want to wear a red T-shirt instead of a Texas Longhorns T-shirt and go and sign autographs and say, hey, I'm, whomever, I'm this player, I'm just signing autographs with my name and not any of my logo or my team or anything to do with the NCAA, they can't do that because they're under rights from the NCAA. There's been a long-standing tradition in the NCAA of basically exploiting players and exploiting the student athletes and just making insane, absurd amounts of money off of their names. And it's come high time that, they kind of band together and they say enough is enough. And, and we're not talking about players making millions, because before this, anybody will tell you, if you do homework at all, a lot of players, and especially high caliber athletes in the Big Four, they would take bribes. They would take bribes from the school to play for the school, because they know that a lot of these players are in financial positions where, they have to pay their mom's mortgage, and they're not financially well off. And a big school can convince somebody, hey, come sign over here. We'll put $25,000 in your mom's bank account so she can pay off her mortgage, but we're going to keep it all hush hush, and you just have to play for us. That stuff happens all the time, and it's a huge cover up. I'm sure I'm not saying anything that anybody that follows it with any degree of regularity doesn't already know. And hopefully by allowing these student athletes to make money off of their own likeness, if they want to go do a Gatorade commercial as a student athlete in NCAA, you can't. You can't make money off of that. The NCAA is going to take all the money from that commercial or whatever. So that's why you don't see it. Now you're giving the student athlete the opportunity to make money off of their own name, not saying like, hey, I'm, blah, blah, blah from, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. No, they're just saying I'm blah, 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 and I'm a quarterback in the NCAA, and this is, my thing. So I think it's a great moment in sports. I think it's high time that this change happened, and I hope that we see more changes in the future when it comes to student athletes, and not only in the United States and the NCAA, but also in Canada here, right? Still seeing the progression and more rights go out to these athletes that are struggling to make ends meet and follow their dreams.
Well, it's also like, speaking of treading lightly and what we're thinking about today, that has also been a racial equality issue as well, because it's been the Black community that has been the ones that are having to fight for those scholarships. White athletes have been easily getting those scholarships for years, and there's been a lot of Black athletes that have not. So that's also part of. Yeah, I agree with everything that has been said there for sure. And but that even we're going a little longer than I thought. But that even in hockey, I think sort of the approach of how we've looked at it. I did an interview with Joe Whitbread who has his own social media company in Red Deer. Just how hockey is like, it's been about the front of the chest, not the back of the chest, and sort of how they've allowed branding and social media. I think that's something worth a bit of a deep dive into as well. So, not allowing people to be individuals, even though they are, and even though they're representing a hockey team and putting in their efforts. And am I making sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah, crystal clear. Okay. Anything else?
Happy Bobby Bonilla Day.
Oh yes, that's right. No, New York. Yes.
He's in year
37?
Year 20 of his buyout, where today he gets another $1.19 million, and he's going to be paid that to every July 1st till 2035.
What a life!
What?
Good as a.
Yeah, he's going to be getting paid over $1 million a year until he's 72 years old. Now, just throwing that out there. Do you guys think that the Mets should be charged with cap circumvention, or how does that work?
I don't even know. I don't even know what the cap or whatever it is goes on with the MLB yet. So
they don't have a cap.
No, they have a luxury
tax.
Yeah.
Okay. Happy Bobby Bonilla Day. How do we follow everyone?
I am BeardyConnect03 on Twitter.
I am GordHouse09 on Twitter.
I am radio_God, GAUD on Twitter.
Tyler, TNOBLE. Chris is Schneid's, SCHNEIDZ. I am KEVOLE. Podcast_hockey. Facebook.com, the Hockey Podcast. YouTube.com, the Hockey Podcast. Subscribe there, like us there, share our stuff. We have some clips up as well, so go check out our stuff. We will be back either Saturday or Sunday, as of yet undetermined, to recap Game 3, the first Stanley Cup final game since 2011 in a Canadian market, the first Stanley Cup final game in Montreal since 1993. It'll be an exciting time. Thanks, everyone. Be well, and we will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.